All right, this is Shayla with Moms Learning with Moms. So today we're going to talk to Stephanie, and she's had a couple of ectopic pregnancies. And one thing that I've learned in momhood and mothering is just the more I ask questions of other moms and the experiences they have, the better mom I end up being. Just some research I was doing online that 1 in 50 women have ectopic pregnancies. And actually, if you have one, then you're more likely to have another one. You had 3 children, right? Before you got an
Yep.
ectopic pregnancy.
Yep. We were hoping to have the next one in the year 2019. So anyway, we were trying to get pregnant, and when we finally did, well, I kept taking the pregnancy tests and it was always like this faint positive line, which I don't think is necessarily that's everyone's case, but for mine, like I would take the test and it was just this faint positive line. So then I'd wait a day and take it again. It was still faint. And then I was like, okay, I'm going to give myself 3 days. And I'd wait 3 days and I'd take the test again. It was still lightly positive. So that's when I actually thought my tests were faulty. And I had a friend take the test, and anyway, she ended up being pregnant and not me. So it was kind of a story on that side, but the tests were fine. But if you don't know, an ectopic pregnancy is also called a tubal pregnancy. Those are the same thing. And it's usually your egg gets fertilized and then it goes down the fallopian tube and plants in your uterus. And with an ectopic or tubal, they implant in your tube. I think like one day before, I had a lot of it was like it was a lot of pelvic pain. When I'd sit, it would just be sharp pains while I was sitting. And so because it was not in the uterus area, like it didn't feel like a cramp, it just felt like sharp pains in my pelvis. I really didn't suspect that it was related to each other. Well, that morning I had a lot of pain, enough pain that I couldn't really walk. So we were driving over to Logan to drop off Nick, and I had all the kids. And the whole way over, every bump, it just all hurt so bad. I was just hurting. And then it was like feeling like cramps and a lot of pain. But on the way over, I knew something was wrong. So I called my sister Melanie, and I told her what was going on basically, and asked her if my kids could be there for the day. So she was kind enough to take all my children. I went and dropped off Nick at work. I went to the instant care. And so I got there. They put me inside the room with the ultrasound stuff. And I waited there for like 45 minutes because the ultrasound tech that was supposed to be there, like they didn't have an appointment till later on that afternoon. So they didn't think they needed to come in yet. And so I just had to wait until they came in, and I was just dying. It hurt so bad.
So
And a
they
lot of it was
didn't
just
give you anything to like take care of the pain? Oh, wow.
not, mm-mm. And so she finally got in there, and they had to do a vaginal ultrasound. And so when she did that, I mean, again, there was just so much pain. Like I was just crying because it hurt so bad. And she wouldn't tell me anything. And she just basically, you knew something was wrong because she said, well, the doctor's just going to have to talk to you about it. So she got done, and then the doctor came and talked to me, and I think by then Nick might have showed up by then, and we were in like the emergency room about to like prepare myself for an emergency surgery. And he explained that basically the tube, when your egg implants on the tube, it's like it wants to collect the blood and start growing, but it doesn't really have a good connection. At least this is how I understand it. And the blood just keeps pooling, and it doesn't actually feed the egg at all, but it keeps wanting to. So it just keeps building and pooling and building and pulling. And finally, I think what my pain was that day was the actual rupture of my tube. So I know he was telling us that if he can get in there and if it hasn't ruptured, then he's able to remove the egg and they can sew up the tube and it'll be fine. if your tube actually ruptures, then they remove the tube, obviously the egg, and that's it. So if you're able to catch it ahead of time, you're able to save the tube. Yeah, Nick was there. I mean, when the doctor told us, it was pretty devastating, just because we were so excited to be pregnant, and then to find out that it wasn't gonna take. And not only that, but I would lose a tube. He did say that, I mean, the chances of still getting pregnant are like super high, and I shouldn't worry about it, and it'll be just fine. I mean, it was a pretty quick thing. I think we were out of the hospital by like 5. And
When did you stop feeling the pain?
well, certainly after they removed the ultrasound, that helped. Um,
Okay.
I don't think they really, I think they gave me some medication. Like once they were taking me to, in fact, that's what, yeah. So after I had the ultrasound, they brought me out back to the waiting room, and then they brought out a wheelchair, and then I was wheeled back into the back room. And that's when Nick joined us. But then they hooked me up to all the IVs and stuff. And I think they gave me the pain medication at that point. But then the recovery for that, I mean, I don't know if I really can't remember a ton, except for I wasn't allowed in water. Yeah, you weren't supposed to be intimate with your husband I mean, it felt like just like having a regular baby, kind of probably the same as having not the same, but close to having a cesarean, where it's just you're just tender.
So he
Yeah.
actually had to cut you open then to remove it?
Well,
Oh,
so
wow.
did the 3 incisions, one in the belly button, one on the side, and one just below. And then they just go in. And actually, the worst part of that, too, I remember, when they go in and they insert those things, they inflate your stomach so that they have room to work.
Ugh.
And there's just a ton of blood that they had to collect, and then they had to take out the ectopic. And that air that they pump in, then they take it out, but a lot of it can stay in your stomach. And when it does, it raises up to at least for me, it was my armpits. And I'll tell you, my armpits are what hurt most of that night. Then wasn't even my incision, but just that pain in my armpit. It hurt so bad. And driving then to Vegas for 6 hours, like just that pain just kept coming up. And
You guys
it
still
was,
went on your vacation?
he did. I asked the doctor if that'd be okay, and he's like, as long as you just take it easy, which actually I think was the best thing that could have happened, because when I'm home, you want to clean the house, you want to clean the bathrooms, you're just more in your zone that you can do other things. And when we were at the hotel, and I mean, everybody, we just didn't have to pick up after ourselves. We had less to
Your
pick up.
advice for other people is to go on vacation after you have your surgery done.
You're already gonna like eat out anyway, so I liked it. And we decided to do the IUD, and just because I felt like I just wasn't quite ready, I don't know, kind of gave up a little bit. Part of me just felt like I was done. We had just bought a vehicle that only fit 5 people in it, so really, like, mentally I was like, okay, I think we're done. But I didn't want to just be done, and I wanted to have the option of maybe having more. So we put the IUD in, and again, the periods were just weird. In fact, I even missed one, which I think is common when you start using an IUD. But it was like I had a period, no period, had a period, and then I was back to, this is in April then, that I was like kind of not having. And by that time, I was walking in the mornings with my mom, and we would go and meet at this track that was an indoor track here in where we live. And I got there, and I just, like, I could hardly walk. I was just in cramp pain again. And because it was the IUD, I felt like um I I mean, just, I wasn't supposed to be pregnant. So again, it wasn't even in my thinking mind. And then later on that day, I mean, mom was pretty worried about me. And later on in that day, she messaged and asked if I wanted to come over and just like let her watch my youngest. So anyway, there was a lot of pain. So I went to my mom's, I laid on her couch, and I just was trying really hard to breathe through like these cramps. And I mean, they were pretty strong cramps. And I actually asked another one of my friends about a night, because I had never had an IUD before, and asked her, and she said, well, sometimes those IUDs will shift and they can cause a lot of cramping.
Mm.
So I was like, okay, well, okay.
Muscle through
So
it. Like,
yeah, I just gonna push through it.
ah,
And see, um, it was actually while I was laying there on the couch that my armpits started hurting, and it just triggered that this hurts, and I don't need to be strong. I can go to a doctor and find out if something is wrong, because I didn't want anything to go wrong. And it was that pain in my armpit that scared me enough to go to the Instacare. My dad took my youngest. My mother drove me to the doctor in Logan. And then they did all these pushing and stuff. It was the same side as my appendix at this point. So we're all thinking my appendix. Anyway, so they found a lot of fluid all over and they said, yep, it's your appendix. We think it's burst. So we'll go ahead and prep you for emergency surgery and we'll go and take that out. Great. We go back to I think I was in the exact same room as the last time. And they go ahead and take some blood samples. And the doctor goes and to go evaluate, because when you have the appendix burst, you should have a high infection. You should have infection.
yeah.
So he comes back, and they've given me some medication at this point. So I'm not in any pain. I'm joking and having fun. I'm fun.
Mm.
And comes back and says, actually, you don't have, your appendix is fine, and you're pregnant. And then another doctor came in, and that was the gynecologist that was on call. And she's like, yeah, it looks like you have another ectopic pregnancy. And she said, it looks like it's just barely starting. So we didn't think my tube had ruptured. And I don't think it did rupture that time. But she said, after your second, the chances of having a third go up to at least 50%.
Wow.
We told them just to take the tube and let's be done with it. So yeah, they took me to the back and moved the tube.
Same procedure then, like just the three.
Yeah, but this time instead of being on the left side, it was on the right side, and actually that recovery was a lot worse. So I don't know if it was a doctor, having a different doctor, if that made the difference, or just that it was my second time, that I was older. I don't know, but it was miserable. And the recovery was a lot of, like, I couldn't bend over very well. It like hurt, my belly button hurt so bad. And actually the spot underneath, because this time I felt like, so here's the belly button, it was like right underneath was the next hole, and then the one over here. And that bottom one was not, like, it had a hard time healing.
So how long do you think it was until you felt recovered again?
Maybe 3 weeks.
Wow.
Like it hurt.
Well, and the first one was only like a week and you were okay again?
Well, I can't really remember totally, but I don't remember it being like this one at all. And maybe that's because I was on vacation and I took it easy on that first one. And the second one, I had to come back and be a mom.
There you go.
I don't know. But it was a lot worse the second time.
When you described the pain, was it a lot different with the first and the second ectopic? Like knowing that it was there, knowing what it was?
So I really, like, the pain was similar enough that, like, I told Mom, I was like, this feels exactly like the ectopic pregnancy. Like, I said that while going to the doctor. I know though that with that first one, like with it rupturing, like the second one never got that, but didn't get that far. The second one was just pain. And I want to say it was still pelvic pain, but there was more cramping.
Okay.
So I think it does. I think cramping is pretty common, and the pelvic pain.
Did they say anything about ectopic pregnancies being fatal?
Oh, yeah, it's very, actually.
So tell me about that. Do you know anything of like what the timing of that is? Like,
well, once you rupture, basically if you don't get treated, you'll just bleed internally.
Oh, that's really interesting. I didn't realize there was no bleeding outside of you. Like that wasn't a clue to anything. Okay. All right. Well, thank you, Stephanie. We're just keep learning. This is awesome, learning from each other and just understanding what moms can experience, and the information that we all have inside of us to just help each other grow and learn, and yeah, just keep learning.